Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Into the Stands for the last time this semester. We've got a lot to talk about today, and I think the majority of our show is going to be focusing on the news we got yesterday that the New York Yankees are acquiring Juan Soto and Trent Grisham from the San Diego Padres. Now, I don't even know what to start. I mean, I guess we'll start by just praising Juan Soto. I mean, the guy's one of the best young players in the game, one of the best young players the game has ever seen. I mean, through his 25 season, I don't think it's a hot take to say that this guy is on pace to go to the Hall of Fame. He's one of the most exciting players in the game. I'm not sure in terms of Instagram followers, what the rankings are, but I saw today he has 1 million followers on Instagram. He's a superstar from the Dominican Republic. Um, I remember back during the pandemic, right, or just around those times when the young stars of the game were, of course, Soto, but also right up there with Acuna and Vladdy Guerrero Jr. and Fernando Tatis Jr. And I remember, Colin, you and I, and we're just talking about how the Yankees need a guy like that.
Yes.
And I never would have thought that Juan Soto would have left the Washington Nationals, let alone leave them once and then get traded to the New York Yankees eventually. This is a franchise-altering move. This is the Yankees' biggest signing. I mean, you can say since Aaron Judge, of course, but I think acquiring a new player, it's their biggest move since the signing of Garrett Cole, which would I say was monumental because they needed an ace. They needed that ace, and they finally got him. They struggled to find that number one pitcher to start playoff games. They got him and got it in Garrett Cole. Um, I think this is a bigger move than Giancarlo Stanton, just because. Yes, I feel like when Stanton came here, it was obviously excitement to see him, but it was good vibes to end 2017, and then you acquire the MVP. It's like, as Yankee fans, it felt like we were so determined to win the World Series next year that we didn't really enjoy it. It was more excitement that we're winning the World Series the next year rather than getting Giancarlo Stanton, a great player and fun player to watch. Of course, that's the case here, but for me personally, March can't come soon enough because I want to see this guy play. I'm really excited to see this guy play. He listen, I don't even know what to say because I don't know what else to say because yesterday there's the whole saga of this trade, this whole trade saga went on for like a day and a half, right? You had Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone were talking about Juan Soto freely like he was a member of the Yankees back on Tuesday. Um, I mean, Jack Curry is talking about this trade. It wasn't even close to being finalized, but him saying that he thinks the trade is going to get done. I mean, and that obviously led to the more news that the trade was getting closer, and it took all day until around roughly 10 p.m. or right around 10 o'clock last night when the trade became officially official, and your top reporters, headlined by Jeff Passan, came out and reported the trade. So that's why maybe I'm not reaction. This isn't a straight up reaction. I've had a lot of time to react and celebrate and waiting for this trade to happen. But man, Juan Soto is a New York Yankee. I am so excited to see what he's gonna do. And yeah,
And it was just a couple weeks ago, right? We were on this show talking about
yeah,
Brian Cashman, the comments he made at those press conferences, how Steinbrenner. It seemed like, once again, you almost saw a little bit more of complacency with the Yankees, very stubborn in their way, such as, what we're doing is right. Listen, we've been to the playoffs, 6 years in a row. Sure, we may have missed it once, but, we had guys that were hurt. Yankees gave those excuses a lot. Now, finally, making this huge trade for Juan Soto. I think for Brian Cashman, what this comes down to for me is I think Cashman was almost kind of haunted by the ghost of Bryce Harper. Because if you remember, people gave Cashman, a lot of criticism for even after getting Giancarlo Stanton, he didn't go out and pursue Bryce Harper in free agency. Obviously, we see the amount of things that Bryce Harper's been able to do in Philadelphia. I think he views Juan Soto as a remedy towards that. And, in terms of Aaron Judge, because obviously he's unquestionably still the best player on the team. He's still the captain. They originally, when they signed Giancarlo Stanton in 2017, I think they kind of pictured him to be that running mate, that guy who was going to stand alongside Aaron Judge, and that was going to be the duo going forward. But I think almost now Juan Soto coming in here, I think he's going to be proved to be that guy. I can almost see maybe they're envisioning Juan Soto as the Alex Rodriguez, Aaron Judge's Derek Jeter. Maybe that situation we're looking at here. I think that Juan Soto is going to be a terrific running mate for Aaron Judge. And I mean, my biggest problem always with this Yankee lineup has always been just the diversification of right-handed and left-handed batters. And that's another move we have to talk about too, Alex Verdugo. The Yankees made a trade with the Red Sox. I mean, we didn't see that coming as well, but now with Alex Verdugo and with Juan Soto coming into this lineup, finally we get to see a lot of very strong right-handed and left-handed bats in this lineup. Because listen, the Yankees had to improve this offense. They were bottom in the league in runs, bottom in the league in batting average. But now you're bringing in Juan Soto. I mean, projected lineup right now, keep in mind, this is even before we can get back Jason Dominguez. Projected Yankee lineup is LeMahieu, Soto, Judge, Rizzo, Torres, Stanton, Verdugo, Volpe, and Wells. That's a very good lineup. This is a massive, massive improvement from what we had last year. An offense that just, it seemed like they would just lose games. Like, I mean, the pitching was great last season. Don't get me wrong. They're one of the top staffs in baseball. They would give up only like 1-2 free runs a game, but the Yankees would struggle to even score just to put up 2 runs on the board because they've been so reliant on the long ball. But that's another dimension Juan Soto brings too, right? We're looking at a guy who had a 400 OBP for all the seasons of his career, a guy who will get on base. Even if, he's going to be in a slump, because we see a lot of Yankee hitters. Like, we've seen Giancarlo Stanton go through months where he just can't seem to get his swing going. Juan Soto's still going to draw walks and get on base. So no matter what, this is going to be felt immediately. Now, the criticism is going to come in that, he only has 1 year left on his contract. You're basically getting Juan Soto for a rental. But I think you have to take that chance. Listen, you're the Yankees right now. Aaron Judge is getting older. Garrett Cole is getting older. Both still very much the top of the game, top of baseball, but you have to make that all-in move, and Juan Soto is that all-in move. And if you're able to sign Juan Soto to a long-term contract, I can't stress enough how much this guy can be the future face of the Yankees, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because 7-year age gap between him and Aaron Judge, I believe 6 or 7 years. So, he's only 25 right now. I mean, we're talking about a guy who at 20 years old basically was the best hitter on a World Series team in the Washington Nationals, did phenomenal down the stretch defeating the Houston Astros. So the Yankees finally have that guy who's, still very young, but also a big-time player who's made a lot of big-time plays when it's mattered the most. And I mean, we were very critical of Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone, Steinbrenner, the way the Yankees ran things, but this is a fantastic move. Maybe we can get Yamamoto too. That's probably asking for a little bit too much because a lot of teams are going to give a lot of money. But yeah, I mean, Verdugo, I wasn't never the biggest Alex Verdugo fan in Boston, but he's definitely fits a little bit of a need, especially with the absence of Dominguez. Trent Grisham, we also got from the trade too, brings a little bit more defense to that lineup, but fantastic day for the New York Yankees.
So first of all, I got to give credit to Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner. Listen, I'm fair to the people that run my organization, or not my organization. I'm a huge fan of this team. That's why I said that, but I'm fair to them. Okay. You guys know how strongly I dislike the way Brian Cashman came out in his press conference, but you got to give him credit. Right. I thought Joel Sherman said it best, which was that the Yankees, right, this season, right, really obviously horrified them. And they didn't like this narrative that surrounded them, that they weren't the Yankees anymore. And they went out and they wanted to prove that they're serious to their fan base, that they want to win this next year, that they believe that last year, which they were accurate, right? I tried to mention this last week, that Brian Cashman was accurate in saying that last year maybe was a fluke season. There were injuries that hurt this team. When healthy, it's a good team that can make the playoffs. But obviously the way he came across that, just explaining that point, was off. But they believed, as they were correct to believe, that last year was a good team that didn't make the playoffs due to the injuries. And of course there were some issues, and Juan Soto addresses a lot of those issues. It does a couple things. He gets on base. He stays healthy. He played every single game last year for the Padres. He hit 35 home runs. We obviously know that. The guy is obviously one of the top young stars in the game. He's going to bring, right? We were thinking about season ticket sales possibly going down, because, right, why would you want to see this 80-80 product? And it's really not fun. The Yankees weren't really fun last year.
Because outside of Aaron Judge, like, what were you outside of Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole, who had great seasons? No one else really, I would say, improved. Gleyber had a good season, but
Volpe, you had Dominguez when he was there. You had Dominguez
for the week or two.
The week or two he was there.
But Listen, this guy's exciting. This guy's gonna sell tickets. Again, I'm not even thinking about winning the World Series. I just want to watch this guy play on the New York Yankees. I'm so thrilled to watch this guy play. But I want to talk also about the guys that go to San Diego in this trade, because the return was Michael King, Drew Thorpe, Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, and Kyle Higashioka. Now, the headline of this trade was, of course, I believe, Michael King. And the reason it hurts, I mentioned last week. Now, first of all, I want to still say for Clark Schmidt, I made it seem like I'm anti Clark Schmidt, that I just don't care for him. I thought he had a very good season. I thought his numbers, I thought he didn't get enough run support. That's why his win loss record was not as good as it should have been. And also, I think he was much better, right? I think the stat was three only 3 of his starts in the second half were not quality starts. I believe that's the stat. If that's not correct, it's something along those lines. This guy was overall very solid, and he's going to be in the rotation next year. But Michael King, I really didn't like the idea of losing Michael King, because we didn't see a prospect. We didn't see what we saw from Jason Dominguez, right? A nice 1-week stretch where, granted, I think Dominguez is amazing. I think he'll be a huge part of this team in in its future. But Michael King was a major league pitcher who was already very good in the bullpen, who seemed to have figured it out at the end of the season in the starting rotation as a potential starting pitcher. I mean, with that sinker, the slider mix, the slurve, as he called it, with that he learned from Corey Kluber, it seemed like the Yankees really ran into something great. And I think he's going to be excellent for the Padres next year. I think he slides right into that rotation. I think he's going to be amazing. I really hated the idea of losing him, but it's for Juan Soto.
And Chris, I mean, you think about it too. If we had this discussion a year ago, what would the Yankees need to give up for Juan Soto? You almost would have imagined it would have to be Volpe or Dominguez. But the fact that both of those two guys are still here, I mean, I think that's a massive win for the Yankees. Michael Cain, I like what I saw. We saw Nestor Cortez also kind of transition from a reliever to a starter. They were kind of hoping for the same thing with Michael Cain, and he did have great stats. But with pitching arms, especially with a guy with an injury history like Cain, you always can't necessarily count on the fact that he can get you for a full season, especially as a starting pitcher, because we've seen with a lot of guys before, a lot of relievers who try to become starters. There's a lot of work that goes onto that body.
And that's the thing, right? And I'll give it to you right now, Rob, but just want to quickly say, right, I like Drew Thorpe a lot. I think he's nasty, great stuff, but this team wants to win this year. This team wants to win now, and maybe the next year after that. They can't afford to have a guy coming up and expect him or have another reclamation project. Clark Schmidt is enough of a reclamation project in the rotation.
That's another thing too. What do you do with the 5th starter in rotation?
Exactly. Now, right, because also in that trade, Johnny Brito and Randy Vasquez, 2 guys that were good pitching depth for the Yankees last year. We saw them quite a bit. They also go in this deal. Also, quickly, I want to wish, obviously good luck to all of them, but Kyle Higashioka also, since been a part of the Yankee organization since 2008, 7 seasons as a New York Yankee player. Very good. Wish him all the best in San Diego. But, right, now we need pitching. It's not a luxury anymore. We need pitching. The way they're talking about Yoshinobu Yamamoto is unlike any free agent I've seen. I even the Juan Soto sweepstakes, where they were just actively talking about him freely. I don't think right. The way they're talking about Yamamoto, how apparently the report is that at least one Yankee scout has attended every single one of his starts last year in Japan.
That's crazy, by the way.
Brian, yeah. Right. I mean, how often do you see that? Brian Cashman going all the way to Japan to watch him throw a no-hitter. They're going to meet with him on Monday, where they have, right? I almost view the Soto trade as like another point just to bring up to Yamamoto on Monday. That, we have the Cy Young contender. You could be part of something special in our rotation with the Cy Young winner. Right. We've had some excellent Japanese legends play through our system. We have one of the best players in baseball, and we just added Juan Soto, one of the other best players in baseball. They really want Yamamoto, and they are not stopping. It's not slight interest. It's unlike anything I've seen.
I like you bringing up Cole there in that pitch too, because I mean, especially for a guy who's just trying to transition to the MLB game, having a guy that experienced and as great as Garrett Cole, I mean, that's exactly who you kind of want to get like that to learn from, And Listen, I think that in terms of sales pitch, the Yankees have a very good one right now. It seems like it was almost reported that Yamamoto kind of wants the bigger market. It seems like he may want a New York or Los Angeles. So it really comes down to how much after, you also have to factor in long term if Juan Soto is going to stay here, how much money you're going to have to pay him in the future. So all that gets factored in. But if you have the money to make everything work, obviously for the Yankees, you go for it. This is when you have to go for it. You do not want to waste the prime of Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole. So this is what you must do.
Yeah, my quick thoughts on this. I was thinking about this morning after the Soto trade. I was trying to grasp the whole thing last night. I was originally thinking that the idea of going all in now was kind of pointless, kind of like how I thought of Ohtani, like not getting traded at the deadline, how that move was kind of pointless. But then you consider how the AL East is, I don't know. I think some of the seasons last year, you can argue were a bit of a fluke. You can talk about Tampa Bay. You could argue Baltimore. And Toronto is trying to play aggressive. So with the Yankees now trying to play aggressive, I kind of like the idea now, if you really think about it. There's one move I don't like, and I'm going to talk about it in a second because I thought it was kind of pointless now. If you really look at it, I think it's kind of pointless. But the Yankees going aggressive now, the 1 year that they could have done it, they actually turns out to be at the right time because the Rays have lost multiple starting pitchers already. With McClanahan being out all of next year, you have Baltimore. We don't know what they're going to look like. Could they possibly... I mean, they were rumored to be in the links to be linked with Corbin Burns. I mean, we don't know what they're going to look like. What we do know right now is that the Yankees, of course, went all in on Juan Soto and Trent Grisham, which, okay. I mean, they went for defense. I thought they were going to... I thought they would be linked with Kevin Kiermaier, so they basically got a Kevin Kiermaier who kind of hit a little bit better than Kevin Kiermaier. But the one move that now really, to me, makes no sense is Verdugo. Why? Like, if I get the initial idea as like a safety move in case you don't get Soto, but you're not gonna get him. There's no way now you're bringing him back next year. By the way, because he's not gonna want to be a platoon. He's gonna want to play 130 games a year. Next year. You're not gonna be able to guarantee him.
I don't even know if they want him back next year. I mean,
then why make the move?
Well, because that there's an injury history often with this lineup. It's like there's going to be stretches where Aaron Judge misses games. There's going to be stretches where Giancarlo Stanton misses games. You don't want to be left having to put out like an Oswaldo Cabrera. I like Oswaldo Cabrera, but that's not a guy you really want started consecutively for weeks upon end. You want to have that insurance. So having, just in terms of the outfield depth here, having Verdugo, having Soto, Dominguez, Judge, Stanton, that's a great outfield. Yeah. I think that, and that was the main weakness for this team for so long, at least for the past year. We really didn't have a lot of guys who could put alongside Judge in that outfield. But getting guys who are dependable, guys who play a lot of games. Like I said, Soto and Verdugo have played a lot of games in this league. I think that's so important. I think really you're just addressing your biggest need.
And Verdugo, listen, I hate the idea of trading with the Boston Red Sox, but I'm sorry, Greg Weissert didn't have a role here. Richard Fitz didn't have a role here, and neither did Nicholas Judas. Those three pitchers, one of them, maybe the Red Sox run into something great, but Brian Cashman said he was going to acquire two left-handed bats. He said he was going to acquire this past offseason. And they've liked Verdugo for a long time. That contact hitting left fielder, right? He could play on the corners. Judge could play in center when Grisham isn't playing, and Soto could play mostly left, or obviously the other way around with Verdugo and left and Soto and right. But with Verdugo, it's Verdugo. I'm not even thinking about past next year. We'll see what we get from Verdugo, and then we'll talk about contract negotiations after the season. But with Juan Soto, the big thing I want to touch on real quick is how everyone's talking about, it's a 1 year rental. It's a 1 year rental. I get that. But I view it more along the lines of this guy's in a contract year. And with turning down $440 million from the Washington Nationals.
There was a reason for that, What? Because
still, it's $440 million. Obviously, I'm not blaming him for turning it down. I'm just saying it was turned down.
Right.
So he doesn't want to get less than $440 million.
And we saw what Aaron Judge did in the contract.
Exactly.
Year, right?
Also proven in the playoffs, right? This guy won a World Series at age 20. And then to put that final little, note on his resume that he did it in New York, was able to play well in New York and hopefully help the Yankees go back to the playoffs. Whether it is the Yankees that do end up signing him back or someone else, he's going to have a major, he's going to want to at least have that long of a resume which he has already. After the end of this season, where if he does put up a season in the ages here, I mean, we're looking at a guy who would like maybe get an Ohtani type contract.
That would be interesting for me, but I mean, you guys talked about briefly the the fifth fifth man in the rotation. If you think about it, Yamamoto, by the way, would be phenomenal. You'd slot right in front, top 2 in rotation. I like the idea, but I mean, because he's been linked with them the whole time, pretty much with the New York Yankees. If it's felt like to me, at least. But to me, being a Mets fan and watching something similar play out, Mets go aggressive. They pay a lot of money, and it's failed. The Padres have done something similar, have gone all in and failed. I mean, they've lost Juan Soto out of it. It's possible that we're maybe seeing. I don't think we're going to see a repeat of this because the Yankees, I think, have done it right so far. You know, trading pieces for Juan Soto. We can all agree that we don't think they would have had as much of an impact on the Yankees as they would on the Padres right now or in the future. Other than I'm a big fan of Drew Thorpe, so that's why I was like kind of hesitant on that because I think Drew Thorpe's a stud and I think he's going to thrive with San Diego now that he's going to be because their rotation I think is underwhelming. So I feel like he could possibly slot in there, but Juan Soto is going to be of course, it's going to be a difference maker. Now, the pressure for this team has turned up near to the max. You're going to be now one of the favorites in the American League East. A lot of people are going to be predicting the Yankees to finish top 2 in this division with who else they want.
Well, the pressure's there every season, so it's nothing new to these guys.
But I think it's more than last year, for 100%.
Well,
I mean, of course,
obviously,
since after the 2017 season, because the 2017 season was a lot of good vibes. People weren't expecting it. Ever since 2017, the expectations have been through the roof for this team. It goes with them every year, and it's not like Juan Soto really has been any stranger to that, obviously, because he's had that championship experience. But these guys know they have to go out there and compete. Listen, we can't go 82-80 again. They have to be a team that at the very minimum can make a wild card. Hopefully they can challenge for the division. We have to really see until we get this team out there. But yeah, I don't think the pressure is really going to get to them.
Juan Soto, when he was with the Nationals, I remember this whole thing. Of course, being a Mets fan, watching this whole thing play out. When the Nationals were terrible, first of all, if you remember, started that season, the Nationals kind of trash. They're pretty bad. Their pitching was not great. Scherzer and Strasburg were both actually getting killed by the Mets, which is kind of funny. Patrick Corbin, I don't even think he was on the team yet. Was he? I don't know.
What year?
When they won the World Series?
Yes, he was on.
He was on that team?
And, yeah, they were. Yeah.
And they had like Joe Ross. I don't know. What else would be start for that team?
Anibal Sanchez.
There you go. There's another one. But what made that team thrive is when people counted them out and they had no pressure on them. And I feel like if what I want, and I think is what's going to make the Yankees thrive more, is if the Yankees came out from a more, I would say, more unexpected approach.
Game 7 of the World Series, there was no pressure.
No, but like to make the playoffs. What I'm saying is to make the playoffs. The pressure was there later in the year because there's always pressure in the World Series. But Juan Soto went crazy in the second half because he had no expectation.
And I mean, you look at those postseason highlights, that base hit to Trent Grisham actually against the Brewers.
Yep, of course,
loaded down by 2. The home runs he had against the Dodgers in that series, the hits against the Cardinals, and then all the highlights in the World Series. I think he hit a home run off Garrett Cole in Game 1.
Yes,
I know
he did.
Or that might have been someone else. I know for sure he hit a home run, a moonshot off of Justin Verlander in Game 6. I mean, the guy has lived up to all the expectations. When he was on the Padres, he was not a nuisance whatsoever. He was one of the bright spots on this team. He was one of the bright spots on last year's Padres team. This guy has had an amazing start to his career, and he's the guy. He's the type of guy that you live with and that you live and die with. Really, you acquire him and you let him do his thing, and that's why I of course I want this team to win a World Series, but I'm just really excited to watch baseball again. Watch this guy play baseball.
Can't blame you.
If they get Yoshinobu Yamamoto, I don't even know what I'll be able to say. It would obviously be a long time until we'll be able to talk about that. But I really am just excited to watch baseball again, and the Yankees, they piqued my interest. They got me. I was gonna watch it, obviously, but They pulled me back in.
What's interesting and another approach you can look at this move is how, and the question I have now is how do some of these other teams respond to Juan Soto joining the American League East? And the team I'm pointing out primarily is the Blue Jays because they've been linked
Yeah.
with a lot of the top players. What are they going to do? Like what we do know, they have to do something because right now the core that they currently have is not enough to win a World Series. I don't think it is. But the question is, what do you, and they have great stars. You can name off or rattle them off right now. You have Vlad, Bichette. There's so many other young players on that, solid players on that team, but they just can't get it done.
Right.
And they need that one big star. That's why I thought where I could also have put Yamamoto fit the best, even though that wouldn't make much sense because they need another star pitcher. Why not go out and get him? You can go out and get your Otanis if you want, but he's not going to pitch for you. The starting rotation for Toronto is partially what let down, of course, with the offense as well. But the starting pitching, I thought last year was very underwhelming for them. So why not go out and get a guy like Yamamoto? I felt like I feel like would be a better move.
I think the Blue Jays pitching was actually better than most people think because Alek Manoah got hurt.
It was so inconsistent.
It was guys like Kikuchi and Gausman who finished, I think, second in Cy Young voting, and guys like that. I think I'm not sure if Berrios had a better season, but I know
it was like kind of the same.
Know,
he had a good second half. That's what I remember. He had a good second half.
I know Blue Jays pitching was a bit better. I know they're hitting, as you mentioned, right? Which you mentioned, right, was actually underwhelming. Because guys like Vladdy Guerrero Jr. and Bichette, very good players, but they feel just like they need that third left-handed power bat. Shohei Ohtani, listen, I mean, I don't know if it's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen there. I think it's a really interesting group of teams that are interested in him. But if Shohei Ohtani, listen, if they are willing to put the money, you know, where it needs to be, in getting Shohei Ohtani, they have a great case for why they should get him, right? They need that star. He has a chance to be the guy, but along with other star players, he can basically gain power of an entire nation. I mean, he will become the athlete in Canada. I mean, above any other hockey player. I mean, this guy will be the face of Canadian sports. He'll have an entire country to root for him, as well as the entire other country or two countries with the United States and Japan that already love him. Canada would join that mix as well, and so he has that going for him. And the Blue Jays would make all that money back because all the jersey sales that would happen with that with getting him. So they have an excellent case for why they should get him. I don't know if he's gonna. I just don't see him turning on the Dodgers now, or I thought the Cubs, but the Dodgers with that weather and the star players, he could do some special things there. I think that's where he's gonna go.
I kind of agree with that. You know, I mean, the idea of Shohei Ohtani with the LA Dodgers feels like the perfect fit. Contender, you don't need to pitch this year. Why not go out and hit 40 home runs to the Los Angeles Dodgers? But Colin, any thoughts on any free agents you want to talk about before? Actually, no, I had one idea. Another possible fit for Toronto Blue Jays. Their outfield, I thought, is also very underwhelming. Bellinger? Maybe?
Yeah, I mentioned
left-handed bat.
I thought of him as a potential last time or two, a few shows ago.
A couple episodes ago.
Yeah. I thought he was a good fit for the Blue Jays. Because I don't. Yeah, the Yankees are not getting Cody Bellinger now. Yeah, he could be a good fit, but they got to pick a direction. They got to go after someone. I think they're working hard, but I'd say for that they got to put all their chips in to acquire Shohei Ohtani. Do whatever it takes, whatever it costs. You got to bring him to Toronto. I would hate to see that as a Yankee fan, but that's what they need to do to put themselves back on the radar, I think.
I like that idea. Colin, any final thoughts on a free agent move that you would like?
I mean, it's really just, other moves have been made so far. Obviously, we're still mostly waiting on Ohtani and Yamamoto. I don't see Ohtani going to the Blue Jays personally. I just think that the Dodgers is a home run signing. But, it's mostly just been the Yankees so far that have really made the big moves. And, of course, we just have to wait till next season to see what happens. But obvious improvements with Verdugo and Soto. Just excited to see how it all plays out in the Bronx starting in April.
I mean, one other move that I heard from I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago was one of the Korean players. I think his name is Jung-Ho Lee, the infielder.
Yeah.
Being linked with the Padres, which I thought was kind of funny. To put him in the middle infield with Ha-Seong Kim. I thought that was an interesting idea. That was one of the other ones that possible links, but my big thing is I'm just very intrigued to see how the AL East responds. We talked about Toronto, Baltimore. I don't know what they're gonna do because like we've heard before that they don't want to really spend money or they have like no intentions of doing so. So like we know Corbin Burns is up for trade. And I feel like Corbin Burns would fit here as your experienced Cy Young caliber starter mixed in with a team of young players. But I just don't see that happening because we don't know what Milwaukee wants to do. They're another team that's directionless right now. But I think if you're talking about Corbin Burns, because we've heard about that rumor pickup recently, I mean, my team I thought would fit perfect for him was the Diamondbacks. Maybe have them go all in because the Padres are starting, I think, to fade. Giants, we don't know what version we're going to see of them. The Dodgers, of course, are the Dodgers. And the Rockies are, of course, the Rockies. So if the Diamondbacks want to stay competitive, why not go get another right-handed starter, which maybe not what 100% what they need right now, because I think they need a lefty. But
I thought they made a really good signing yesterday, getting Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yes, that's your lefty. There you go.
4-year contract, $80 million.
4-year contract for him was kind of interesting.
It's fine. I think it's good. I think it's perfect. He's like 32, maybe.
All right.
That's fine. I mean, lefties with age, when it comes to age, they don't. I think around that age, they usually thrive. It seems like he's a really good left-handed pitcher. I think that was a good signing for them.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to head to the gridiron next because we talked enough about the Yankees. The big news with the gridiron was, did the Giants really have any news this week other than their game?
I mean, it's just that we officially announced Tommy DeVito starting against the Packers, which, of course, people are going to say Brian Dable lost the locker room, but I think it's the right move. Obviously, you think that, you might want to go to Tyrod Taylor because, yes, he has that experience. He's an ultimate professional, but I think Tommy DeVito just going for is the right move. We'll see what happens when they play the Packers on Monday.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what Tommy could do. Of course, again, it's a tough decision. It's just, with the 2 wins, coming with DeVito starting, and I mean, how much really was it him? I mean, it was, although he made some good throws, it's the type of thing where he's, I guess, the hot hand at this point, and you want to let him ride.
And just considering the fact that this guy might be the future at the back of quarterback position,
right.
Because
I
don't think Tyrod's going to be on the team the next season. I think that Tommy DeVito still should be. So just going forward, you want to see what you have out of this guy.
I like that idea. Well, the bigger news out of MetLife, because the Jets are home this week, I will be there on Sunday, was from yesterday. And my ladies and gentlemen, he's back for what rendition is this of Zach Wilson getting named the starter?
Like the 4th or 5th time?
4th, I think we're on 4 now. No, 5th, because Rodgers started. I don't know. Whatever rendition this is. Zach Wilson was named the starter. And now what will be deemed as the battle of the former 2nd overall picks as the New York Jets host the Houston Texans after the absolute masterclass of failure from both teams from last week when the Jets played the Atlanta Falcons in what could be called one of the worst games I've ever seen. It was, I'll say this, that's the worst game of the year. That was worse than the Giants game because both teams very well showed that they wanted to lose. When the Jets played the Giants, were the Jets in the playoff race still?
I mean, yeah, but you have to also factor the fact the Giants did not throw the ball once that entire game.
That's your difference.
Single play.
That's your difference. So that game against the Falcons was atrocious. Tim Boyle got cut. Good riddance to Tim Boyle. He shouldn't have never been brought here in the first place. He should have never started that game last week in the first place for how bad he's looked. I thought it should have been Zach or Trevor Siemian. But the big thing from Zach is what I found interesting was his somewhat reluctance to come back from what we heard earlier in the week. I thought that was kind of, I mean, because I felt like it was odd because wouldn't that just depreciate the value for a guy who doesn't want to play for the team rather than worry about
then
injury?
Again, you're asking a guy who repetitively benched over and over again to come play again. I just don't think Zach Wilson, the Jets, is just going to work anymore. I just think that relationship is completely soured. But of course, I guess, I mean, I wanted to personally see Trevor Siemian get a full start. He only got in the 4th quarter of that Falcons game.
He looks so bad.
I mean, they all pretty much do at this point, so it's not really going to make that much of a difference.
Fair play. But I mean, listen, what we're gonna see on Sunday now. One, of course, the game I go to, it's gonna be warm, and there's possibly like a bad storm on Sunday, which is just gonna make this game even more interesting, especially for the Texans side, because MetLife turf plus rain, we don't know what we're gonna see. Could we possibly see more injuries? I think that's very, of course, with MetLife turf, you never know what's gonna happen, but the big question will be, what does the Texans offense look like? We've seen enough of Zach Wilson to possibly see what we could get from him. But with the Texans losing Tank Dell for the season, but I don't think it's as bad as people are making it, because we've seen the rise of an unexpected receiver this year, the rise of Nico Collins, who went absolutely crazy last week or like 2 weeks ago. He had like 190 yards recently. So I don't think the Texans should be worried about the Jets very much.
I think as long as Texans score 14 points, they'll win the game.
Oh,
So I don't think
100%. Because
I don't think they'll have any problems.
The big issue for the Jets this week, though, and this happened yesterday, was a pop-up on the injury report from Breece Hall, which was interesting. He did not practice. I don't believe practiced or was limited the last 2 days, which is very concerning because, one, it's going to rain this week, so I have a feeling he might get injured again. But two, the Jets have had also a reluctance to running the ball with Breece Hall. I mean, I don't think he's gotten over like 15 carries in a game since like the Broncos, which is concerning. I might be wrong on that stat, and I believe I am, but you can point to the offensive line being inefficient, being injured to hell and back, but what we're seeing from like some other teams that have bad offensive lines, they're still showing a ways of running the football. So like, I don't like that excuse, possible excuse from the Jets' perspective, but it's as per usual now. It's going to come up to the rely on the Jets defense to possibly ruin a team's playoff hopes. And not gonna lie, I kind of like playing that role of ruining hopes and dreams, because the Jets already do that to their fan base at times. I mean, we beat the Rams, and that's basically sent Sam Darnold to exile, to not even starting games anymore. I mean, we beat the Rams, and then we beat the Browns, and that game was kind of funny, but because we didn't deserve to win either one, and we went on and won some games. But this game, I think, is going to be under. If you're not slamming the under on the betting lines, I don't know what's wrong with you, but I think that you have to slam the under. But if you take a look at the other games from this week, we'll talk about a couple of them real quick. Is there a game for you guys that stands out this week?
Well, I think more so than necessarily talk about a game that stands out. I kind of want to take a look at the whole playoff picture right now before we go back to that, because, there's a big difference between the AFC and the NFC right now. Now, in the AFC, there's a lot of teams who currently would be like the Houston Texans, for example. They're currently out of the playoff picture, but they have a 7-5 record. But you go over to the NFC, there are only 4 teams in the entire NFC with a winning record, and that is obviously the Eagles, the 49ers, the Lions, and the Cowboys. Only 4 teams over 500. So there's a whole lot of mediocrity kind of fighting for the final wildcard spots here. So you have a lot of 6-6. So the Falcons, of course, lead in the worst division in football there in 4th place. You also have the Vikings and the Packers who both get in right now. The Packers have been really hot. Jordan Love has been playing great the past couple of weeks. But then you also have the Rams and Seahawks sitting outside also with the same record at 6-6. And I mean, then you start kind of getting down to the Saints, the Buccaneers, the Giants. So a lot of teams that are going to be vying for those final spots there. So, I mean, ultimately right now, the Vikings are obviously going to still be struggling because, they had a pretty rough outing against the Bears, only able to put up 10 points. Josh Dobbs had a bad performance. I don't expect that much going forward. The Rams, they're starting to pick up a little bit more steam now. The Seahawks, they had a really good showing against Dallas on Thursday night. They really did all that they could to win that game. But they're going to have an even harder schedule coming up. They're going to have San Francisco. They're going to have Philadelphia. Seattle might be the better team than a lot of these other ones. It's just unfortunately the way the schedule turned out for them. I don't think they're going to get in there at the end of the season. Back over to the AFC right now, the Chiefs have had a lot of struggles, so they're currently sitting there at that 3 seed. Miami Dolphins taking the number 1 seed in the AFC right now, which they're going to get tested a little bit coming up here because, they're going to have that big game I can remember against Dallas on Christmas Eve. So really just you have to prove a little bit more about beating teams with those winning records. Baltimore is pretty much tied there. And then Jacksonville is another one, too, that's going to raise a lot of attention because they're sitting there at 8-4. Obviously, the injury to Trevor Lawrence is looking like C.J. Beathard is going to get the role as starter for at least a couple weeks here down the stretch. And listen, we wouldn't have thought of going into the season because, obviously not a lot of people thought much about the AFC South outside of Jacksonville. But We talked about the Texans a couple weeks ago, but the Indianapolis Colts sitting there at 7-5.
What a story they've been.
Shane Steichen has done a phenomenal job there. Listen, the Eagles' offense was dominant last year, and he's doing a lot of good things. I mean, we saw Richardson, and when he first started out, obviously it sucks that he got hurt, but he had a pretty good couple starts to his career. But Gardner Minshew, listen, Minshew is one of the guys who really doesn't get talked enough about in this league, but he's probably one of the best backups in the league, and he is
the best backup in the league now.
There's a lot of guys who are out there who you could debate for that, but Gardner Minshew is definitely up there. I think that, when he first started off in Jacksonville, he had great stats, and, he's just doing what he has to do. This Colts team is very good, and they might get a playoff spot, and I did not even think that a couple weeks ago. Obviously, Cleveland is still struggling with their quarterback situation. They saw Joe Flacco start last week. They lost to the Rams.
He looked good for one drive, I think. One or two drives.
Plus, for a 38-year-old, 40-year-old quarterback, that's pretty much as good as you're going to get. See what happens going forward there. Pittsburgh.
They're in trouble.
Yeah, I am not a big believer in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Also, Kenny Pickett got hurt. A lot of backup quarterbacks. So we're going to see Mitchell Trubisky start on Thursday night, which we're going to get into later. The Broncos finally lost. That streak ended there, but I still think that they're going to have a little bit more momentum. But the 6-6 teams just never stop here. The teams that have at least 500 in the NFL is insane, because we even get down to the Bengals and the Bills sitting at the 10 and the 11 seeds. Two of at least last year, two of the best teams in the AFC. The Bengals with Jake Browning, they were able to pull out that win there on Monday night against the Jaguars.
That was crazy.
Bills have been very up and down. So there's just, at least right now, this is almost as jumbled of a playoff picture as I can remember seeing in the NFL. I'll let you guys tackle it a little bit. What you think about what we're seeing so far?
It's been total chaos, and I love it. If you look at seeds, 11 to 5 are separated by one game. I've never seen this before. If you want to tell me a team to possibly watch out for in the AFC, I know my NFC team. I will talk about them in a second, but the Houston Texans beating the Denver Broncos, I think it was a possible statement because both teams were riding high. They've both very solid teams. It's just, how will the Texans offense look without Tank Dell? He's looked great all year. Of course, the Colts have made a statement this year with Gardner Minshew. Interested, of course, to see how Anthony Richardson looks coming when he inevitably comes back. But if you look at the Colts schedule, it's kind of mediocre. I'm not gonna lie. They play the Bengals, the Steelers. We don't know both who are them. So they're gonna be facing Jake Browning and probably Trubisky. Then they play the Falcons, the Raiders, and the Texans. So what we could be seeing is a Week 18 showdown for a playoff spot between two teams that we didn't think were going to be competitive this year. That's insane to me. But the team, if you want me to look at a team for the AFC that could possibly be a dark horse to maybe make the playoffs, you got to point at Indianapolis being that 17 right now. Arguably having one of the easiest schedules left. I think they could be heading in the right direction. But a team that I really did not like in the beginning of the year that I think has a golden opportunity to make the playoffs now is the Los Angeles Rams. And the reason I'm saying that, look at their remaining schedule. They play the Ravens, which is going to be I have them losing. They're playing the Commanders, the Saints, the New York Giants, and the Niners. So what you're possibly seeing here, I think 9-8 could make it in the NFC this year for how mediocre it is.
I think 8-9 could do it.
8-9 could possibly make it as well. First of all, we have no idea how that NFC South is going to look. I talked about the Falcons already. I had them winning the division in the beginning of the year, but my goodness, I'm concerned for the Saints because Derek Carr got a concussion again. The Saints are killing this man. I don't know why, but I don't know why they can't block for this dude, but Derek Carr is getting ruined by the Saints, and it's not really it's partially his fault. I kind of blame coaching because the coaching staff there is not very good after Sean Payton left. But I think the Rams have a decent chance to do this. Their defense has looked better. Matt Stafford's looked decent. But, I projected the Packers to also make it in the beginning of the year. They're playing the Giants. I feel like that should be a win. I think we can all agree that should be a win for the Packers. Do we all agree with that one?
Listen, you can't never guarantee wins in the NFL,
That's fair.
I'm going to just say, I hope the Giants pull it out. Tommy DeVito, sanity continues for another week, but you never know.
The one other team that could possibly make it in out of the NFC South, and that's because how many teams they play in the NFC South, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've looked better. They have the Falcons, the Jags, the Packers. I said this out of words. The Falcons and the Packers, Jacksonville, but they end this season playing at home to the Saints and away to the Panthers. If they win those NFC South games, that finishes them at 8-9, which could possibly win the NFC South. And if what doesn't help them is that they've lost to the Falcons already. So they're going to need the Falcons to go like 7-10, which I don't see happening. But if that does happen, because Arthur Smith keeps getting in his own way, can we possibly see the Bucs make a sneaky move into the playoffs and win the NFC South, a team that we didn't really expect to do much in the beginning of the year? That's another storyline to possibly look out for. Chris, what are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, going back to the Colts, I mean, it seems like they always find a way, right?
Oh,
They always
100%.
find a way, and I mean, you look at the schedule, as you mentioned, it is a good story. I mean, they are playing the Bengals in Cincinnati. I mean, that's going to be interesting. But then they play the Steelers at home, the Falcons, the Raiders, and then they end the season against the Texans. So it's an interesting little schedule. But I mean, there is, I think, a definitely realistic chance that this team could make the playoffs. I mean, they're very good, but there is one team, in the NFC, the Vikings. They have an interesting schedule coming up where they're currently in the playoff mix, but and it seems like the season has definitely gotten better for them. But I know they still have to play 2 games against Detroit.
Ooh,
Now,
good point.
I don't know if by then it'll be the end of the season. You figure Detroit's already in by then. That Detroit maybe decides to sit some starters and not exactly go all in. But then again, I'm sure they would, for all the years that they've been at the bottom, I'm sure they would want to
I mean, this is a big season for the Detroit Lions. This
Exactly.
is as good of a season as they've ever had.
And I think they want to send that message to their division rivals and everyone else just in football for that matter. And I think they would definitely want to. I think they definitely would want to take care of business against the Vikings. So I could see them kind of on the decline. But yeah, I mean, overall, it is very interesting, the playoff format, or the playoff picture we have here in the NFL. Specifically, I mean, I really look at that AFC. I mean, with the amount of 7-5 and 6-6 teams, I mean, who do we think is going to get the final spots?
It's just too tough to tell at this point.
Oh,
I mean, there's so much
100%.
football that's left. But
I mean, you got youth, you got good stories like the Colts and Broncos. You got the teams that you expected to be cruising to playoff spots on the outside looking in. I mean, it's really
on top of the 7-5 mix too in the AFC, there's also the race for the 1 seed. I mean, realistically, Miami, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Jacksonville all have a shot at it. I mean, right now, from what we're seeing, I mean, who knows? I mean, the Chiefs have been down. Obviously, the Jaguars with the Lawrence injury are going to be down a little bit as well. But it really just seems like it's any team's conference. I mean, in both sides. I mean, for the NFC, I think another big topic we have to talk about is San Francisco 49ers because they had a dominant performance over the Eagles. I think that would prove they're the best team in football. I know the record says the Eagles are better, but to me, I trust San Francisco more if they're fully healthy. Now, granted, health's always going to be a problem with this team, but we've seen them demolish the Cowboys, seen them demolish the Eagles. I think we're the best. They're the best of the best, but we'll see if they finish out with the 1 seed in the NFC.
I like that call from Colin. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers, my problem has been with the consistency at times from Brock Purdy. I feel like that could be his one main flaw is being consistent. I actually saw a video of fans complaining that he was underthrowing some passes. And I actually watched a video this morning while I was getting ready to go to my first class from Kurt Benkert. And he was talking about a throw from Purdy that was under a little bit, and he called it intentionally underthrown to, I think it was Brandon Ayuk, a deep crosser over towards the right side. And it was a phenomenal throw from Purdy, but fans are saying, oh, it's underthrown. It's intentional. Brock Purdy, I think, is one of the better minds of a young quarterback that I've seen in a long time. I think he still has so much potential, and he's in a phenomenal situation. We're seeing right now from Brock Purdy what we should have probably seen from Trey Lance, which is high potential. We don't know we didn't know what version of Trey Lance we were going to see coming out of North Dakota State, which I don't know if that's just more about North Dakota State quarterbacks or the player in himself. But Brock Purdy is really continuing to emerge, and it's a phenomenal sight to see. But one game one story I do want to talk about is the Dolphins. I mean, the Miami Dolphins this season, if you look at who they've beaten, I think they're one of the most fraudulent possible one seeds I've seen in a long time. And this is my reason for it. They've gotten demolished by the Bills. Their best win this season has been against arguably that Denver Broncos game when they put up 70.
Well, I think the same argument also goes for Dallas. I think
Oh,
a lot of these
100%.
teams have also a lot of schedules. That's what teams do, right? They take advantage of their schedule. We saw that with the Giants last year. The Giants, had an easier schedule. They played a lot of AFC South teams that were bad. They took advantage of that. That's what teams usually do. It's just when it comes down to those two teams playing each other, which is why I think coming forward the last couple weeks of the season, I'm really looking at that Miami Dallas game.
I'm looking at Miami Dallas. We could possibly see for a matchup for the 1 seed on New Year's Eve with the Miami Dolphins against the Baltimore Ravens. And to end the season, the Miami Dolphins host the Buffalo Bills, a team that could also still be in the playoff mix. The last 3 games for the Miami Dolphins we're really going to see what this Miami Dolphins team is all about. 3 legit opponents to end their season. 3 possible statement wins. They've lost to the receiverless Kansas City Chiefs because they only have Travis Kelce. They've lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. They've lost to 2 contenders technically. Are they able to go out, win at home against the Dallas Cowboys, go to Baltimore on New Year's Eve and beat the Baltimore Ravens? Can they go back home and beat the Buffalo Bills? That's a storyline I'm 100% intrigued for the rest of the year. And it really sucks that we can't talk about it here on this show. It's really unfortunate. But looking at the slate for next week, I think there's 3 phenomenal games next week. 2 to 3 phenomenal games. And I'll ask you guys, what's a game that stands out most to you for this week, Colin? We'll start with you.
This week, let me take a second here to pull up the schedule.
I think really quickly, I'll just say mine. I definitely Seahawks 49ers is, of course, the one everyone's going to be talking about because, right, the 2 met on Thanksgiving with the 49ers, of course, winning, but this time going back to San Francisco. I mean, I think it could just be, another good win for the 49ers, but I really, I mentioned it before, I think Colts-Bengals is going to be an interesting one.
The battle of the backups? I kind of like that shot.
Yeah, I mean, 2 teams that are really trying to fight for those spots. And the game will be in Cincinnati, but the Colts are, the hot hands. They are playing very well. They're on the 4-game winning streak, and I think Gardner Minshew won the Nickelodeon MVP award this past week.
I didn't even know that existed. So shout out to Gardner Minshew.
So, I mean that's an excellent award. I think they're riding high. As for who's going to win, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to choose. I think I am going to stick with. I think I am going to take the Colts in a close game. That's probably my game to watch.
I like that shout. Colin, what do you got?
For another battle, the backups, how about Jaguars versus Browns? We're probably looking at CJ Beathard versus Joe Flacco. 2 teams who are in the playoffs right now, trying to regain their position or trying to keep their position. I think this really kind of says a lot because, Jacksonville, we've seen him with Lawrence all year. Obviously, the Browns have struggled without Deshaun Watson for a couple of weeks. We're going to really see how much of an impact Trevor Lawrence has in this Jaguars team. Can they still stay afloat with Adams? Going to be huge for me. But the obvious matchup, of course, is going to be the Sunday Night Football game, which is Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys. If the Cowboys can pull this off, they will be the first seed in the NFC. Now, this is obviously as big of a Dallas Cowboys game as we've seen in a while. This is a must-win game, I think, for both teams. It was close in Philadelphia, right? I mean, the Eagles only won by 5 points. So Philadelphia, coming off that loss to the 49ers, they really got humiliated. This is about as big of a game as you can get for both teams. So obviously the game of the week is going to be happening in the Jerry World between the Eagles and the Cowboys.
I like that show. I'm going to go with the game that I would have picked regardless. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. A battle of an AFC divisional round game from years past. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, one of the best QB matchups possibly from the beginning of the year. And I still think of that right now because Josh Allen got so much potential. I mean, he has had a little bit of a disappointing year, a little bit of a down year, you can argue, especially with that Buffalo Bills team that we all thought was going to win or being at least in major contention for the AFC East. It feels like that conversation's kind of over. Now the Dolphins are continuing to go absolutely crazy. The concern here, of course, in this game, I'll start with the Chiefs real quick. You can't go mentioning the Kansas City Chiefs without mentioning how bad their wide receivers are. You talk about, if you want to look at a guy like MVS, he's had a very bad season. McCole Hardman has under 100 receiving yards. Their one positive right now is Rashid Rice at the right wide receiver position. I really like Rashid Rice. I think he's a lot of potential to be a very solid wide receiver. If you also look, of course, you can't go to the team without mentioning Travis Kelce. Their starting tight end. He's been fantastic all year long. And for the Buffalo Bills, what version of them are we going to get? Is Josh Allen going to turn the ball over like 5 times, or what's going to feel like 5 times throughout this game? I think that's another question to watch out for. The thing to watch out for in this 425 game is how good will Josh Allen be not playing aggressive while also not turning over the ball. And I think that's something to watch out for. If you want another game for me to watch out for, we're going to go to Baltimore. I keep mentioning them, but we're going to talk about the Los Angeles Rams and the Baltimore Ravens. I think the best 1 o'clock game of the session, because there's not really like that game that's that good. But the Baltimore Ravens, what is Lamar Jackson and Matt Stafford? I mean, Lamar Jackson trying to keep the Baltimore Ravens in the hunt for the number 1 seed, and the Los Angeles Rams trying to stay in the playoff hunt in the NFC. I think that's a game 100% to watch out for. Probably the best game of the 1 o'clock session. Well, it is that time, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about this Thursday night football game. I just, whatever. We have the New England Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to see, was it Bailey Zappi against Trubisky? What we really I wanted to see the matchup of was the battle of the backups, which was Malik Cunningham against Trace McSorley, because we would actually see quarterbacks that would actually try to both, you can argue, are dual threats. And I think would have made this game very interesting. But we'll start with Chris for this one. What's our predictions for this?
Steelers 14-3.
Yeah, 14-3. I kind of like that shot.
So
Colin.
One of the previous lowest scoring games in NFL history was a Monday night game where it was Steelers versus Dolphins, and Steelers won that game 3-0. That will happen again. The Steelers will win this game against the Patriots by a score of 3-0.
I like that one. Well, my shout, I think that I have 2 bold predictions for this one. The Patriots will get under 150 yards. The final score of this game will be 7-3. I'm going to say 7-3. The Steelers are going to score either a punt return or one long passing touchdown, like a slant or something. It'll just be some random play. I think the Steelers defense is going to kill this Patriots offense. This Patriots offense has looked so bad throughout the year. I mean, we forgot to mention this earlier. They lost 6-0 last week. That's one. It's insane because it was against the Chargers.
It was 3 straight losses where they allowed 10 or less points,
and they've lost all. And I mean, they haven't scored more than 10 points in a game since their loss against the Washington Commanders. I mean, what's weird about this whole thing is this Patriots team has gone out and beat the Buffalo Bills. They've also gotten blown out by a lot of decent teams. And they've also were in contention earlier in the year against the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's a season of what could have been for the New England Patriots, but I have the Steelers winning this one by the final score of 7-3 in tonight's Thursday Night Football game. On that note, that will be the end of today's episode on Into the Stands. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great holiday, a good Christmas, a happy New Year. We will see you guys in January. On that note, for Colin and Chris, I'm Robbie Basil saying so long. Enjoy the holidays. We'll see you in 2024. Goodbye, everyone.